This is part 2 of my rewrite review. This part contains heavy spoilers. I'm basically going to give you my opinion of all the routes in rewrite. And obviously, heavy spoilers ensue, so beware if you don't want to see those. Now, in my part 1, I already went over the common route for the most part. But just to give a quick opinion on that, just a refresher, I really liked it. It wasn't as good as Little Busters, nowhere near as good as Little Busters. It wasn't as funny or as fun, but it was still funny and fun, so, obviously if you don't like anime tropes, you probably hated it, but if you do, if you can find humor in those, then it was probably just fine. Overall, yeah, I liked it. No real problems with it, really, and felt fine to me. In fact, I felt like it could have been longer. Some people would kill me for saying that, but yeah, I thought it was great. If anything, there's one problem with the common route, and that is that it does not link very well to the other routes, because the genre shifts way too suddenly into the other routes, and I think that is not good, quite honestly. In Little Busters, it's a little more overbearing or a little more bearable, because in Little Busters, I felt like the genre transition wasn't as bad. Like, I felt like it wasn't willing to go, you don't go from a comedy slice of life for, 20 hours to a freaking, shonen or a horror mystery or whatever, you usually don't go that turn. And if you do, you introduce those elements a lot sooner, and I don't think this common route really did that. So I don't think the main writer actually wrote the common route, but who knows? I'm rambling, and that's what I love to do, so let's move on to the actual heroine routes. The first girl I played was Katori. Now, just a quick opinion on her character, I loved her. I thought she was really humorous. I thought her relationship with Kotaro was easily the most natural, probably the most natural I've seen in any key work ever. So I thought they did a really good job with that. Yeah, no real complaints about her character. I thought she was just handled really well in the common route in general, and I was really interested to learn more about her, so yeah, good job, Romeo, the guy who wrote her. I really thought, I wanted to learn more about her, so that was a good job. As for her route herself, I hear a lot of people were disappointed with it or think it's the weakest route. I don't see that. I don't see how they could see that. The thing about it is I think a lot of stuff happens in it and it's really confusing, but that's because of how this visual novel works. It works a little bit like Fate's Stay Night, and where you're given information in one route, and so the reader knows it for when he reads another route, and it might not come up again in that route because it assumes the reader already knows it. And I think a lot of people don't like it when visual novels do that, and quite honestly, it's probably not a good idea, but that's how this visual novel works. As her route for herself, it was very tense, it was very dramatic, it was depressing as hell, and in general, yeah, I just felt like crap playing it. I mean, lots of sad things happen in it, and the main characters, Katori and Kotaro, they just feel so powerless in that route, and I think that made the atmosphere just great. I love that. I love how tense the atmosphere was. I mean, it's pretty hard for a visual novel to do this, but in the other routes, Kotaro is a lot stronger, so it's not as tense. But in this route, he's essentially mostly powerless. And then you learn the other details about Gaia, and not so much about Guardian. You don't really learn much about them. And yeah, as a whole, I thought the only weak point of this arc was the fact, basically, the ending might have been a little too chipper, but I think it needed to be chipper, because it just felt really depressing. I mean, the ending scene is really powerful, I thought where she was dragging Kotaro away, and had to use her own human strength. I thought that was great, and I thought, unfortunately, the visual novel contradicts this later, kinda, but I thought that part of the game was just, it pulled me in. I was super immersed when I was reading her out. I no real complaints about it, other than maybe there could have been more romance in it, but, not every girl route needs to have that much of a focus on romance. This one certainly didn't. I don't know. Some people might not like it, they might not like it if it's, because it's so super depressing, but otherwise, I thought it was great. It was one of my favorite routes. So, not really any complaints about it. So we're off to a good start. That's good, you know. Got one good character. Now our second route that I played, Chihaya. Now, there's one thing you need to know about this route more than anything. It is shonen and nothing but shonen. It literally is just a shonen fest. Everything about it is super shonen. And some people are like, yeah, it's so shallow and, you know, who cares? It's shonen. It doesn't want to be anything else. And I think that's its strength, that it, you know, it's one of the routes that actually has a focus to it. It doesn't try to be anything else, and it fits with the common route theme. You know, I complained before that, you know, I thought the common routes shifting to a shonen was a bit much, but at least I think shifting to a light-hearted shonen isn't that bad. You know, it's still a bit of a shift, but, you know, I can take it in a little more. Chihaya herself probably could use a little more development, but I still thought she did get development. You know, not a lot of people say she didn't get that much development. I'm like, yeah, she still did, you know. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot, because the main focus of this route is both Kotaro and Sakuya, Sakuya is basically a parody of Sebastian from Black Butler. If you didn't know, you probably should know. He's not all a parody, but he's definitely based on Sebastian and making fun of a lot of Sebastian's tropes and personality quirks. And quite honestly, every scene with him is great. I thought he's easily the most likable character in the whole game. And I know a lot of people might say, he's just a shallow master character, but that's okay. You see, shonens, if they want to be a shonen, they don't have to be that deep. They just have to be fun, somewhat dramatic, and they have to get your blood pumping at points. They can be funny too, you know, and it's got a lot of good comedy scenes. So this route, despite it being really, you know, shonen-y and really not that dark, it's just so much fun that I didn't care. In fact, another thing, despite it being fun and pretty happy most of the time, it actually made me sadder than any other route in the game. And that's kind of, it's like, it's the most happy, chipper route of all of them, and yet it made me sadder than the other routes. Why? Because I actually cared about the characters the most. I liked Sakuya, I liked Gil, I liked Panny, and when all of them disappeared, I was really freaking sad, you know? And the other routes, they'll be a lot darker, but they won't be as effective because the characters aren't as likable, you know? There's nothing wrong with being a shonen. I mean, if you don't like shonen, you're not gonna like this route. I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with being a shonen. It's fine, you know? So overall, Chihaya's route, despite some people might say it's the weakest because it's just a shallow shonen, I actually enjoyed it the most, because it had the most focus to it. You know, it doesn't try to be anything other than what it is. And some of the other routes, they don't know what they want to be. And we're gonna get into that. Lucia, or Lucia. Now, Lucia's route isn't all bad, but it's not good either. And it's kind of funny. We're gonna have to go talk for a while about Lucia's route, because it's just, this is where the game was starting to hit a low, actually, and it's unfortunate because Lucia, I think a lot of people like her, and the reason they like her is because she gets more character development than any of the other heroines. And that's good, but unfortunately, it doesn't work out. And I'll tell you why, but we'll start slow. First things first, Lucia's route doesn't really start when it starts. It actually starts a little before that, because it starts with Lucia avoiding people because she doesn't want to touch them, or she doesn't want things to touch her. And this part of the route is actually more like other visual novels with their girls and other key heroines, you know, and there's nothing really that strange going on it. It's just a slice of life, kind of, you know, somewhat of a mystery with the heroine. That's usually how a lot of visual novels work. So this one starts out the most normal for a visual novel, and it starts out the slowest. Now, I don't know if anyone enjoyed this part. I thought it was good. I thought this part was fine. So this part starts out as a comedy slice of life. What does it turn into? A mystery horror. What does this remind you of? Higurashi, right? Who wrote this? The Higurashi author. Ugh. You know? And I'm like, oh god, this better be good, you know? I was kind of worried when the Higurashi author wrote it. I'm not saying he's bad, I'm just saying, I don't know if he belongs in this game. Doesn't really seem like a place where he belongs. But yes, they turn it into a mystery horror. I'm not sure why, and it doesn't fit in at all anywhere else in the game. Like, this route is completely out of place, as you might expect. But whatever, they decide to roll with it, and quite honestly, this part is good. It is good. Like, I'm not even complaining about it. I liked her development during it. I liked the mystery involved with her. This part of the great novel is great. There's not a lot of focus on Kotaro. It's mostly just Lucia, and this is why she gets more development than the other heroines, because there's so much focus on her rather than Kotaro, as with the other routes. That's all fine and dandy. And when they finally get to the end of the mystery, her problem is somewhat solved, but I guess not solved enough for the visual novel creators, as they decide to change it from a mystery horror to a political thriller. It went from a comedy slice of life to a mystery horror to a political thriller. Really fast too, by the way. As you can see, it's a little jarring. And so they decide to bring in all this, and they also bring sci-fi into it, because that works. You see, the problem with this route is that you learn in the other routes that Lucia is a part of Guardian, a secret organization. And during the whole mystery horror route, you are thinking, oh, well, why isn't Guardian coming up at all? Like, why aren't they involved in this route at all? So you know they're gonna come up. And unfortunately, I think because of the way the story was written, he had to tie it into the grand scheme of things, and that really hurts the story, because he had to force Lucia's route to be tied into the grand scheme of things, and if he didn't, it could have just been a simple mystery horror, and that would have made the route a lot better, trust me. Now, it's just painful thinking about this route sometimes, because it's not very good. But yes, there's sci-fi elements, and actually, the problem that Lucia's happened is that she's a secret experiment. Oh god, this is not gonna end well, is it? And here's one thing that really boggles my mind. Lucia's problem is she can't be close to anyone, right? That's her problem in the route. That's basically her entire problem, because she's got poison hands. She's got poison hands, so poison anything and to kill everything, and it's awful. But yet, she's best friends with Chizuru. Yet, she has a whole secret organization of comrades. Tell me how you're alone again? Why are you complaining about it again? It doesn't make any sense. What is she complaining about? She apparently has all these allies, and yet she's like, I can't be close to anyone. I guess because she can't hug anyone or touch anyone, that's still kind of, boggling to her, but come on, it doesn't feel like she needs to go to the extremes she went in the mystery horror route just for that. I mean, if she literally had no friends, then I thought it would have been believable, but she has this whole secret organization of friends. Well, maybe not friends, but they at least back her up. And it's like, come on, are you kidding me? And the political thriller stuff that happens, like with the gotta find the key. Yeah, I haven't even mentioned the key yet, nor do I really want to, but whatever. The key can destroy the world. That's all that it takes the form of a girl, can destroy the world, whatever. She doesn't really come up in this route anyway, so whatever. And it's funny because during this political thriller plot that's happening, right? Lucia and Kotaro start to have romance time with each other. And it's very tsundere romance, okay? She is essentially a tsundere. So is Chihaya, but Lucia is like the queen tsundere of this game. And that is, nice, actually. I thought it was pretty moe. If you guys like moe, you'll like this. But, it's not really that different from any other tsundere romance. Yeah, it was good, but it felt really out of place with the political thriller stuff breaking up the romance stuff every 5 minutes or so, and So it's like, okay, it's not gonna end well or something. And whatever. She gets more character development during this aspect, and that makes her more likable and very moe, mostly moe. I think that's why a lot of people like her, because she's very moe during this section. However, despite Kotaro doing everything for her during their date, they have a date and they go out on it, and yeah, it's pretty cute. I'm not gonna lie, I liked it a lot. Just like all of you, I liked it a lot, I won't lie. But unfortunately, that's not enough for her. That's not enough for her, because she wants meaning in life. Now, normally I wouldn't make fun of that. I mean, if some people need a meaning in their life, that's just how they are, and that's good, you know? But she drills it into your head. She says it so often that it just makes her comical at times, because she's like, I need meaning. I'll do all these horrible things, but I need meaning. As long as it gives me meaning, I'll do whatever. And so what does she do? The secret organization that made her in the first place actually finds her again, right? And they say, if you do this, you will, have your true meaning in life or whatever. And it's ridiculous because she will do all these horrible things just so that she will have meaning. She is out of control, okay? And she does not want to be found at all. She abandons Kotaro, the one person she could touch and, be happy with, just to find something she, doesn't even know if she can find. It's kind of ridiculous, but whatever, if it all ends well, or if it all has a point in the end, then it'll be fine. But you won't believe what they do in the next part. Well, if you've already read it, you already know what happens. And the next part, they try to find Lucia. By the way, Lucia, after the secret organization gave her an order, she decides to kill a lot of people. And because she does that, the whole town has to get nuked, which means Kotori has to die too. Yeah, she decides this on her own, by the way. Like, she wouldn't have had a choice in the matter because they would have forced her to do it, but she decides this on her own. So she's, like I said before, a little out of control. So they go to find her because they want her out of that city before the nuke comes. Yeah, this is getting really crazy already, right? It goes from a mystery horror to a political thriller to a nuke plot. Yeah, it's a bit much to take in. What does it turn into? You won't believe it, but a shonen. Right at the end, it turns into a shonen. Actually, Lucia has super strength along with her poison abilities. And Shizuru has super strength. Well, you knew that in Chiaya's route, but if you haven't played it, Shizuru has super strength too. And they battle because they need to take Lucia back while she tries to convince Lucia that she has everything she wants. And Lucia's saying, I don't have everything I want a meaning, and I don't have that yet. And it's quite honestly an absurd scene, because you cannot have a shonen fight in the middle of a mystery horror thing. It just, well, not in the middle, just in a thing with a mystery horror, you have a freaking shonen fight at the end. Really? I mean, Chiaya's route is like the exact opposite of it. This route is like 5 genres or 7 genres all in one, and it tries to do all of them, and it doesn't succeed. There's so many genre transitions, while Chiaya was just, I'm just gonna be a shonen, and that's why that route worked. This route doesn't work because it just tries to do everything. Now, how does this route conclude? Well, you see, obviously, Lucia cannot be convinced that easily, or she shouldn't be able to convince that easily. But somehow, Kotaro just needs to tell her that he loves her, she doesn't need a meaning, and that she's all he needs. And he needs her. That's the only thing that matters to her. And evidently, that's enough. That's all she needs, is someone to need her. And Kotaro before was being very dense about this, but whatever. I mean, you can't blame him too much. I mean, I guess you can blame him for being stupid, but whatever. I mean, he's not a mind reader. Sorry, not everyone's a mind reader. If you want something, you gotta ask for it sometimes. And what does Lucia do early in the route, by the way? she thinks to herself that, oh, if I want him to do this final thing on the date for me, then I should ask for it. I shouldn't, like, always rely on him to just know everything. And yeah, and he does it anyway, and that makes her really happy. So obviously she learned nothing from that, so her character development actually regresses in this route. And the whole way she acts beforehand is ridiculous. It quite honestly makes fun of her character, in my opinion. Like, her quotes are just so cheesy and so over the top. It's just like, yeah, I know you don't mean anything you say, so it's just ridiculous that you expect us to believe any of this. And, yeah, did not end very well, and then it had a happy ending for her. Some might call it bittersweet, but it's mostly a happy ending. She got exactly what she wanted. She wanted someone to need her and be with her all the time, and that's what she got in the ending. And I don't feel like that was well deserved, quite honestly. I didn't see, this had to have a sad ending, in my opinion. It did not work with a, semi-bittersweet ending to me, because I'm just like, oh, well, she gets to spend the rest of her life with the love of her life, and that's all she really wanted in the first place, so, I don't understand how, Guardian just let her live. I mean, she killed so many people. Yes, she's being forced to live her life underground the whole time, but that's no different than how it would have been even if she didn't kill all the people. She would still have been forced to live underground the whole time, so it's the same solution regardless of what she did, So I don't understand. She's not really getting punished for what, in fact, she's getting way too much. And I don't know, I don't buy that ending. I felt like she was completely out of control, and she was willing to kill her friend because she was so out of control. Oh, and that doesn't suit well with me, that, that she's not, even though she knows she was wrong, that she's not really willing to take any punishment that she wouldn't have gotten in the... Anyway, I mean, literally, this would have happened. She would have had to live underground, even if, she didn't do all this, so it's not any different. So overall, her route wasn't very good, because it tried to do too much. If it stopped at the mystery horror ending, then it would have been fine, but trying to do too much usually ends up messy. So sometimes simple is best, and that's why GI's route worked and her route didn't. Shizuru. There isn't a lot to say about Shizuru's route. It was kind of disappointing, actually. It wasn't really disappointing as much as it just made me feel kind of empty overall. Like, her character is good. I like her character, but they did not give her character any love in this route. She basically got no character development in this route, and that's a shame. She got more in Chihaya and Lucia's route than she did in her own route. That's ridiculous. Kotaro doesn't even get that much character development in her route. I mean, he didn't in Lucia's route either, because they devoted all the character development to Lucia. That didn't suit well with me, because he didn't really change that much, and neither did Shizuru, so it was a really static route, and it felt like it wasn't building up to anything, and events were just happening. And the only part of the route I liked was the ending, like part of the ending, not the ending. I thought the ending was just silly, but the ending with the letter to everyone, I thought that was nice. But everything else, I felt like none of Shizuru's problems were resolved, none of, like, her thing with the parents and stuff. I'm like, that was probably the main thing to resolve with her, right? And they just didn't even touch about it, and it's like, well, what is there to do with Shizuru? Why is she even a heroine at all? There's nothing else to her. And it's like, if you're gonna be a plot character, at least, contribute something to it, or be a character that develops. If you're gonna devote a whole route to her. I mean, it's not like in Chia's route where they had Sakuya, and Sakuya is the one who got most of the character development and fleshing out. She doesn't have a character like that. So, and you don't even learn that much about Guardian in this route. You learn more about Guardian in Lucia's route, which is ridiculous. I feel like, and she had the tragic ending. I felt like Lucia should have had the ending that Shizuru's route did, and Shizuru should have had the ending Lucia's route did. Well, that wouldn't make any sense, but that would have been interesting somewhat. Or Shizuru should have, I don't know why they gave Shizuru a tragic ending over a lot of the other heroines. I'm not sure. Maybe the writer just hated Shizuru. I don't know. This route, there's not a lot to say about it, because not that much happened in it. I mean, salvation happens at the end and the whole world crumbles, But you're wondering, well, why did that happen in this route but not the other routes? It was kind of weird. So I don't know. I think this route just didn't go really anywhere. So it was a bummer. So unfortunately, out of all the heroines, her route is the worst because not enough happened in it. Akane. Akane is really a tie for me with Katori for best character out of the heroines, but her route in itself was really satisfying to me. In this route, basically what happens is Kotaro joins Gaia, like he did in Chihiya's route, and he makes some choices that you probably won't approve of because he's a loner and he's lonely and he wants Akane to kind of fill that loneliness. And so he does a lot of bad things like kill people just for the sake of he decides that he's just gonna do whatever Akane wants because he can't think for himself of what to do and he just wants to be with her and that's all he wants in life. That can be a little off-putting, I'm sure, to a lot of people, and maybe people didn't like that part of this route. But I thought it was interesting, and it would have been bad if he didn't get some sort of, development out of this, and if he just stayed in his little dark place. But obviously, he does not. And later on, he realizes, Akane basically kind of degrades and gets gradually more distance away from Kotaro during this route. And that's when he realizes that, I really shouldn't be doing all these awful things to help Gaia. This is not the right way for me. And in that kind of way makes him realize he's got to stop whatever Akane is doing because she wants to destroy the world, basically because of this plot point that she has this mindset of some woman who basically needs to do that. And eventually he does stop Akane. He says that she needs to pay for her sins because she basically wrecked the whole world to do something that she didn't even really want to do, but she decided to do anyway because she's just kind of a pathetic person. Much like Lucia. Lucia, just was pathetic. She wanted a boyfriend who loves her. That was her patheticness. Akane just didn't have the will to live. She just didn't have the will to live. She was kind of born mentally handicapped, and I think that kind of just made her kind of not have any will to live in life. So the rest of the route, you see her being her pathetic self, and this might kind of change your opinion about her a little because she's just sitting there being pathetic all day. And Kotaro is debating on whether he should tell the survivors, because he managed to have the survivors. So Kotaro has a big decision to make. He needs to decide what he wants to do with his crimes, because he feels the need to pay for them. And that's good, because he realizes that what he did was not what he wanted to do at all, but he did it anyway because he wasn't thinking. And so he decides he wants to pay for his crimes, and the only way for Akane to realize she wanted to pay for her crimes as well is when Kotaro basically volunteers that he himself will take the blame, and Akane herself realizes that's not how she doesn't want to just let Kotaro take the blame for that. And not everyone might agree with that that she needs Kotaro to do anything, So but it's established she's not an independent person. She needs someone to depend on, and she doesn't want to lose Kotaro. But it also shows that she actually does care about him. And I don't think anywhere else in the route where you were shown that she really cared about him that much, and she was just using him to escape her loneliness. To me, this was the route where Kotaro got the most character development, and Akane got enough too. I mean, there wasn't enough romance for some people, but it was nice. It was a much more mature and dark route. There was a lot more death and such. But I like the route. I like the ending. I like how they went into that secret kind of place and started life there, and how the city basically changed. Now Yoshino changed in that city. So it was a nice way to see things. I mean, it was nice to see Kotaro, he finally felt the need to act like his real self rather than a total goofball all the time. So that was nice, and unfortunately, even though he finally got comfortable with that city, he had to leave it because of him and Akane had to leave because of the terrible things they did. And that was kind of a lucky punishment for both of them. Not the happiest ending, but, you know, they didn't really deserve a happy ending because they both did so many awful things before. And I like this. I like that the fact that, you know, that Kotaro saw what he was doing was not what he thought was right, and I like the fact that he got plenty of development in the process. I liked it second best next to Chihaya, quite honestly. I liked it a little more than Katori, but not as much as Chihaya's, mainly because there are some boring moments in this route, and there is a little too much politics involved that aren't that interesting, but otherwise, a solid route. Good character development, good character interactions, and really, I thought this was the route where Kotaro showed his strongest character. The final two routes are Moon and Terra, which you can only play after you've played all 5 heroines routes. Now, some people might tell you that you've been playing this game, so you could play these 2 routes, while others might tell you that they're a bunch of nonsensical garbage. It really varies. I don't know which category you're gonna fall under. What I fall under is sort of a blend of the two. There are parts of them I find good, but parts I find very bad. So let's just go over them. For Moon, basically Kotaro is there as a phantom light being. He's not actually there, but his like spirit or something is there. I'm not really sure. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but he's basically there with the keep. The Kagari person that you've seen in all the other routes. And she's just there sitting in this kind of flower field, whatever. And he's trying to interact with her because he's alone otherwise, and he doesn't want to be alone. And she keeps killing him every time he comes near her. And so, but he doesn't want to be alone, so he keeps trying and trying and trying, and eventually he slows down and gives up, and then she's willing to let him get near her. And it's a little hard to believe because Kotaro actually develops feelings for her. Not sure how, but we're supposed to believe that he develops feelings for her. It feels like as long as anyone is there, he'll develop feelings for her. So Kotaro becomes a little hard to take seriously at times because of this. I feel like he might have been forced to develop feelings for her, but I'm not completely sure on that. But overall, it's a little strange, and they try to have these romance moments between the two, and they would work, but Kagari is not a character. She is a plot point. It's hard to care about Kagari because we know basically nothing about her, and she can't even talk. This Kagari can't even talk. So she's just kind of this thing there, and we're supposed to buy these romantic moments they have, and quite honestly, they would be good, and I think they're written pretty well, but, you know, you have to care about a character for it to have any impact, and there's no way to care about Kagari. There's no emotional investment in her. That's the bad part of the route, if you ask me, because it expects the audience to buy that, and it's impossible to buy, if you ask me. The interesting part of the route is basically Kagari is trying to make a theory of how to save the Earth, because apparently the Earth keeps on dying over and over again, or ending over and over again, and coming to this bad end, and she wants to figure out how to make it good, and Kotaro wants to help her. So he does this by rewriting himself and increasing his intelligence or whatnot. And this just makes him less and less human, so it's not actually a good thing. Yeah, it's eventually she pulls him back from doing that. They aren't able to come up with a theory, at least not at that point, to save the Earth. That's a big bummer, but thankfully, later on in the route, well, not thankfully for this part, but later on in the route, the holy woman from Gaia is sending monsters to the moon so that Kagari can't develop this theory. How is she doing this? I have no clue. Someone tell me, because I have no clue. I don't think this is explained anywhere in the game, though. It might be, but I have no idea how she's sending familiars to the moon. It sounds like that would take way too much life energy to actually do. I don't know if she's just a phantom or why she's even in there in the first place. But the part that everyone generally likes about Moon is Kotaro is able to bring back all the club members, and apparently they all have the memories of every route. And basically, so Kotaro has a relationship with all of them. So he's got his own little harem up there. And that part's fun, but it ends on a sour note because they all basically die at the end. But before they die, they basically find somehow Kotaro gives Kagari a hint so that her theory can be complete and whatever. And so once her theory is complete, they send that theory back to Earth and revive it so that it can be complete, and so the Earth can have a good ending or whatever, or something like that. Yeah, it's a little confusing. I'm not sure what to make of this route other than I didn't really care for it too much. Like, I like the part where all the members came back, and it's interesting, but I don't know. It doesn't really, it's not that strong if you ask me, because it doesn't make that much sense. Like, there's interesting writing in it, but it doesn't make that much sense, and the romance of Kagari and Kotaro, like I said, is impossible to buy. It might be just forced, which it probably is, and yeah. But whatever. It's basically just a setup for Terra. Now the final route, Terra. This could make or break the game, right? It's Terra, the final route of the game. This should be like Refrain from Little Busters or After Story from Clanad, and really be what you remember the most about the game, right? And I'm here to say that a lot of people might like Terra, but I did not like Terra. Not one bit, but I did not like Terra, and it kind of hurt my opinion on the game. And I'll tell you why. But first, let's talk about the good points of Terra. The good points of Terra is the first half before the world actually is changing is good. Basically, Kotaro, you finally learn what happens to Kotaro before he was put in that coma, and that is good. His interaction with Kotori, his interaction with his parents, is all very interesting. He's very unlikable in this path. Very unlikable, by the way. And that really hurts. You can sympathize with him at the beginning, though. You can see why he's so unlikable, but he's just having, a rough life, and you're hoping that maybe he can overcome it by the end. And you were hoping that. And the other good part is when later in the route, when he invades Gaia and Guardian, that part is pretty interesting, if you ask me, and I think a lot of people like that part, but that does not save it for the other stuff. Alright, here it is. Basically, in the theory that was developed in Moon, that was sent to Earth, it's basically guiding Kotaro and telling him instinctively what choices he needs to make to get to the good ending of the Earth. That's basically what I got out of it. That's why you see all these choices, but you cannot pick them. And I think it's because the theory that was sent and Moon is telling him what choices to pick. And so basically all his actions are forced. And that's not a good thing if you ask me, because they don't make any logical sense some of the time. Now, there's one that really pisses me off, and that is, there's this point where Kotori is going on a trip with her parents, right? You heard about that in her path. They go on a trip, and they die, and they fall off the cliff or whatever and die. And you have a choice that tells you to pick to stop them, right? And you can pick that choice. You have to pick that choice to stop them. And so you pick it. Does Kotaro stop them? No, he doesn't stop them. So why is this choice there? You think that maybe, oh, well, they are giving Kotori a chance to actually have a happy ending with her parents. I would have liked that. But no, he's like, why did I think I could stop them? And he doesn't, and he just lets them go, and they die. And I'm like, what was the point of that? I thought that this would predetermine his actions, and he would make a difference, and apparently that wasn't the difference that needed to be made, and she dies. I mean, they die. Not Kotori, she doesn't die. But this pisses me off. I mean, what was the point of even having this choice at all? What does it have to do with anything in the story? Like, at all? I mean, I could have seen how it could have been a plot point, but not there. He had a hunch that he should have stopped them, and it was right. And this isn't realized later on. You would think that, oh, maybe later on he'll realize that, oh, the hunches I'm making, they're somehow right. And that would have been nice if he could have realized that, oh, I am being guided by some invisible force. But he never realizes that, unfortunately. So I don't know why this was put there. It just seems to be put there to depress the player. And I know I'm going on about this, but it pisses me off that it's even there in the first place. If they're gonna die, don't even try to trick the player that you could save them at all. It's dumb, okay? It's depressing, and it doesn't need to be there. Now, there's, like I said, there's a huge problem with an invisible force kind of guiding his actions. You see, Kotaro in this route is a member of Gaia. Not Gaia. Well, later on he is, but Guardian. And in Guardian, he basically does a lot of, things he doesn't want to do because he goes to this war-torn country, and he has to kill people and do, things that aren't very pleasant. It's a soldier life, and that part of the game is not bad either. I like that part. However, later on in that route, his mission involves him killing children, and he decides that, that Guardian is not the way. That's what he decides because they kill children, and you can sympathize with that, right? That they kill children, they're not doing the world good, probably, if they have to resort to such dirty tricks or whatever, or such underhanded methods. There's no reason that some of the children that they killed had to be killed anyway. They could have been reasoned with, because they weren't even doing it because they wanted to. They just did it because they had to. And that's all fine and dandy, quite honestly. Like that part. Love the whole war part. Love everything before what comes afterwards. You see, the one who got him to be in Guardian with Asaka, and he becomes good friends with Asaka, right? And Asaka, he decides that he doesn't want to be in Guardian, whatever, but he decides to betray Asaka for Kagari, the key. And he somehow, in his heart, feels like that's the way it's gotta be. And it's not for any good reason. Remember, he's good friends with Asaka, so he's going with the key. But he's not going with Kagari to save the world. That is not his reason. He's going it because he's lusting for her. I'm not joking. He's lusting for her. That's his reason. Are you kidding me? You think the player can buy that? And I know it's an invisible force that's forcing him to think this way, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, he's the main character. Can you not give him a proper reason to do some of the actions he does? Oh, and by the way, you know how I said earlier that in Guardian that he wanted to quit because they do awful things. But what does Kagari want to do? She also wants to do awful things for the good of the world. She once Akane shows up and sees her, because Kagari doesn't want to be seen, she's willing to kill Kagari. She's willing to kill a child too. And yet, he thinks, oh, being with Kagari is so much better than being with Guardian, even though it's no different at all. But the invisible force is telling him that, oh, this is the way to go. I mean, I'm not doing it because I really, care to. I'm just doing this because I want to be with Kagari. And it's ridiculous to think that he would actually have a stronger connection with Kagari. And if you've played the route, you know that he doesn't have a strong connection with Kagari at all. Nothing real. And he admits that to himself, that he's really doesn't he admits it out himself at one point that he doesn't even really like Kagari that much. It's really ridiculous. You have to give the main character adequate motivation to perform the actions he's performing, because he does kill a lot of people and he betrays his friends. He even ends up killing Asaka. Not because he thinks what he's doing is right, he just wants to be with Kagari. And it makes all of his actions empty in the end, with such a shallow motivation. This part of the game pissed me off so much, and it made me hate him, quite honestly. This is the kind of logic I would see giving the main character of Chaos Head, okay? I could see Takumi thinking like this, because he's kind of pathetic, but this isn't the this isn't the way the story built up Kotaro. I cannot see how he came to this conclusion. Now I know, invisible force, forcing him to do this, and the fact that you need an invisible force to force him to do this kind of thing without giving him a real reason is really the weakness of this route, because you'll realize that all of his actions do not have a lot of thought put into them. They just are the right action because of invisible reasons. So, unfortunately, I really did not like this route because of that. And the ending is ridiculous. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't even feel that different from the other routes. Like, how is that conclusion that, oh, well, Gaia and Guardian were keeping too many secrets from the world. They just needed to share, and then the world will have good memories. Yeah, the world will have good memories. Just the fact that that's what gave the world good memories is ridiculous. I mean, really? He killed so many people, and he betrayed so many people, and somehow his actions led to good memories. You can't be serious. You see, when you give a character actions and you don't like the actions they're performing, you better give a damn good reason why the actions they're performing are right if you want them to either be likable, sympathizable, or interesting. Or even if the reason is shallow, forced love is not a good reason, okay? That's just gonna make you not give a shit about the main character. I mean, it's so ridiculous that they thought that this was a good way to write the story. See, in Love, Alternative, or whatever, Takeru had a goal, and he went out with that goal. Not the way there wasn't all that nice and dandy. It was the final world line, and there probably was some invisible force kind of guiding him on some of his actions. But, he had a goal and he had motivation, and he didn't always choose the right action, but he had a good reason for it. Shiro in Heaven's Feel and Fate's Day Night, when he chose to protect Sakura over other people. You could see how he would want to protect Sakura, and it's not like he was giving up his ideal completely, because, he was still protecting people, it was just he kind of had to choose Sakura over them. And the most extreme example is Saya no Uta. You could see how, I forget the main character's name at the moment, but you could see how the main character in that might choose the bad actions he's choosing, because he's kind of going a little insane anyway, and he's just living with the most horrible thing you could ever live with, for the most part. But here, invisible force, infatuation, those are not good reasons. Those are terrible reasons. When he kills Asaka and you see him being all emotional over it, it feels empty. Because it's like, yeah, why did you do this? And somehow, since he never really realizes this invisible force, there's no way to know how he knows what he's doing is the right thing. Like, how he knows that this is what's gonna save the world. There's no way for him to know that, but somehow we're expected to believe it. And that's ridiculous. I know I keep on saying that, but it's what made the ending kind of garbage, in my opinion. It felt like it really contradicts the Kotaro that was in Akane's route, because he did a lot of bad things too, but then he realized, the bad things I was doing, they for the sake of someone else that I'm just infatuated with, that wasn't the way to go. And this completely contradicts that. And he says, well, you can do bad things as long as, it ends for the greater good, even though if you played the ending, you already know that everything pretty much was pointless in the end. It was stupid. It was really stupid. Like, Terra's whole route, like, come on. Think about it for a second, author. Don't just blend. And plus, it throws away the strongest part of the game. The strongest parts of the game are the heroines. They are the strongest, and they're not even in this route at all. It's just about Kotaro, the really unlikable Kotaro. I'm not sure where people who love Terra are coming from. Maybe you could explain it to me. Maybe the only thing I can think of is you like the gritty atmosphere, you liked the serious subject, and you liked that the actions he was taking were interesting, but without proper motivation, the actions just feel empty in the end. It's kind of a shame, because I invested so much time into Rewrite, and this was the ending I got. And it felt like a lot of everything was kind of worthless. You're telling me that... I mean, it pretty much ignores the 5 heroines' routes. It feels like the only point of the heroines' routes were for them to motivate him in Moon, because he needed a connection with them for Moon, so that he would give that Kaguri a hint, so that the Kaguri could send this invisible force connection to make the proper world line, as Steins Gate would put it. And yeah, and that's how it ends. So overall, Rewrite wasn't as good as I hoped it to be. I wouldn't even call it good anymore. I'd just call it decent. It has so much potential, and the heroines are likable, and I like their paths, but the ending is such crap that I cannot call this a good game with good consciousness. And you would say, well, you know, it's sometimes the journey is what's important, not the ending. I get what people say when they say that, you know, some people, you know, they don't need a good ending as long as the journey's good. I understand that, but the journey needs to be good and the ending needs to be good for people like me and me in general, because the ending is your last impression on the game, or movie, or anything. And when you think about it, you're just going to think about your last impression. That's probably the first thing that'll come up is, what did you think of last when I played it? And if the last impression was disappointment and disgust, then it's going to be hard to convince yourself that the game was good at times, for people like us at least. So, as a final note, I did enjoy parts of Rewrite. I wanted to like it way more, but as a whole, I kind of wish I didn't play it. And that's sad. That's sad that I have to say that. I mean, I spent a solid month playing this game, and I kind of wish I didn't, because it did not end in any shape or form in an appropriate way, if you ask me. And that's all I have to say about Rewrite, and I'm sorry that I didn't like it, and I really wanted to, and I really liked some parts of it, but as a whole, no. So, Little Busters, I would probably put it above Air, above Canon. Well, I can't even put it above Canon, because I can at least say I liked Canon for the most part, you know? It wasn't anything special, but I liked it. Well, with Rewrite, I'm just full of bad feelings. So, Rewrite, like I said in the first review, only play it if you are really, really bored, because it takes a long time, and it will definitely suck up a lot of it. Anyway, thanks for listening to my review. If you want another, just let me know, and I will review any visual novel I've played. I've played most of the ones translated into English. See you later.